Welcome back, friends, to another episode from Just Us 619, Just Us San Diego Realty. Today's book review, Negotiation Genius, from some Harvard authors. Key term in this is BATNA, BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement, which is the best course of action if no deal is reached. Also, RV, reservation value, the minimum acceptable deal, often called the walkaway point. ZOPA, ZOPA, zone of possible agreement, the range between both parties' RVs, where a deal is possible, and subjective value to ensure deals beat no deal scenarios. Chapter 1. In distributive no sum negotiations, focus on claiming the maximum share of existing value. Value is subjective. So aggressive claiming doesn't always harm relationships if done strategically. You want to assess your baton, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Identify and improv your best outside option to strengthen your position. Determine your RV reservation value, the worst deal you're willing to accept, walkaway price. Estimate the other party's BATNA and RV to map the ZOPA, zone of possible agreements, the range between both parties' RV where a deal is possible. So, what does that mean? You want to think about your best alternative, your worst case scenario, and everything in between. Being prepared is essential. When you plan about these three things, your BATNA, RV, and ZOPA, you have an idea of what you're walking into so that when you're offered a deal, you have contingency plans if it doesn't go the way you're thinking initially. And when you have that, you're able to move forward quicker, make a decision, and be decisive. You also want to estimate the other party's BATNA, RV, and ZOPA to map out your best possible deals. Use anchoring. Make the first offer if informed about their RV to set a favorable reference point. So if you've done your research and you're informed from what you can know, because there's a lot of information that you may not know that's still out there, but if you feel comfortable, it might be a good idea to go ahead and put that first offer out there. Success isn't just beating your RV, but capturing most of the ZOPA, zone of possible agreement, and learning for future deals. For example, selling a used car. Your RV is 10,000. Based on trade-in offers, their likely RV is 12,000. Anchor a high 14,000 and claim more of the $2,000 ZOPA. In salary talks, a candidate with a strong BATNA, another job offer, for example, anchors at 120, pushing the employer beyond their initial $100,000 budget. So having leverage essentially can be in your favor. In this example, it's a trade-in or another job offer. Chapter 2. This chapter shifts from fixed pie thinking to integrative negotiation by expanding the pie through trades. Subjective differences in priorities enable win-win outcomes. 50% of a $200 pie is greater than 80% of a $100 pie. Perspective. It also talks about identifying multi-issue trades, which is called log rolling. Prioritize issues differently to swap low value items for high value ones. So this means, hey, if you have multiple needs on the table or issues, if some are worth more to you than others, you want to probably prioritize one of the high value to keep and swap out the low value ones in your favor. Create a scoring system. Assign weights or dollar values to interests. This way, it helps you have a better idea of what's worth more to you versus other things on your negotiation table. Calculate package RV, reservation value, which is the minimum acceptable deal. The minimum overall value needed across all issues. This is what you have to think about. Out of all your issues, out of all your needs, what's the minimum you need? In bundle and add issues. Include contingencies, performance-based payments, for example, or side deals, training support to enlarge options. So sometimes you have to think out of the box. You have a certain amount of issues or needs that you enter the table with, but based on who you're working with, you might want to bring in some other items to sweeten the deal or to make your deal a little better. Probe interests. This is important. You have to ask why from the other party to uncover hidden needs and avoid assumptions. Don't think you did all your research, you knew you have all the information. There may be something that you don't know that might be even more critical to them, but might be working in your favor if you don't ask, what are your needs? What are you looking for? Might not be anything, but if you don't ask, you won't know. For example, in a home sale, the buyer values quick closing, high priority, but low price. Seller prioritizes price over timing. So log rolling in this situation, buyer pays full price for early move-in. In a merger trade, cash for stock options if one side prefers liquidity and the other long-term upside, expanding the deal from 100 million to 120 million in perceived value. Chapter 3. Negotiation is an information battle. Geniuses actively investigate to test assumptions, reveal interest, and craft tailored offers rather than haggling blindly. So you learn as you go, you adapt and overcome. Again, ask questions. Decide on first offers. Anchor aggressively if you know their RV. Extract information from the recent parties. Use open-ended questions, labels. Seems like timing is key, for example. Or collaborate. How? Why? Queries. Counter anchoring by ignore extreme offers and reframe. If someone offers you something and it's outside your range, that's outside our range. Let's discuss priorities or counter with your anchor. Use contingencies for uncertainty. Tie terms to future events. Like example, hey, if you finish all the work by this date, you get a bonus. Or in sales, you hit a certain number of targets, you get a bonus. Achieve Pareto improvements. Mutual gains without trade-offs by aligning on shared priorities. So both sides could win if you focus and learn what's important to both sides. Might be possible to satisfy each party. For example, a buyer suspects a seller's low price hides quality issues, probes with what concerns might future owners have, reveals a needed warranty, allowing a higher price but coverage. In job negotiations, ask what would make this role ideal for you. Uncovering flexible hours traded for lower salary could be important information. Chapter 4. When rationality fails, biases of the mind unfold. Cognitive biases distort perception and decisions, leading to suboptimal deals. Geniuses minimize their own biases and exploit others systematically. So, this means geniuses, negotiation geniuses, are conscious of their biases. And before they say or act, they think about, okay, what's my bias? Let me take that out of it. What's the approach I should take minus my bias? Anchoring stuck on first numbers, availability, overweight recent information, confirmation, seek affirming evidence, overconfidence, underestimating risk are all common biases. Adopt an outsider's perspective. This will help you take away your biases. Use decision aids and gather disconforming evidence. Frame offers to exploit their anchoring or loss aversion. So make them feel better, essentially. Comfort them that you're not trying to exploit them. Provide evidence of why. This will help leverage their biases in your favor. Chapter 5. Emotional motivational biases. Feel conflict. Rationality requires managing feelings without suppressing them. Biases include egocentrism, viewing own consciousness as generous, theirs as selfish, reactive devaluation, dismissing opponent ideas, and endowment effect, overvaluing owned items. Next item is to mitigate. Role reverse, argue their side, aggregate emotions, vent once. It's okay to express how you feel in a professional way, and build empathy through sharing framing. Let the other side know what you feel as well. Don't keep secrets, um, and let them know your concerns. Use emotions strategically. Express genuine ones to humanize, but prepare scripts to stay composed. So don't go on a rant and unveil information you don't need to. Negotiating rationally in an irrational world is the next chapter. Even if biased, commit to rational processes. Use PSS, post settlement, a process to revisit and improve a deal after initial agreement without reneging. To revisit deals after emotional cool. Guard escalation of commitment, sunk cost, and status quo biases. So what this means is, you get committed on idea. It's like, for example, when you invest in a stock and it goes down and you're committed, instead of selling when it goes down at a certain point, you stay in because you like, oh, it's going to come back up. It's going to come back up. And it never comes back up to what you wanted to. Or when you're gambling and let's say you gain a little bit, but then you lose, and then you lose, and then you put more money in because you want to get back, right? So that's kind of what sunk cost is because of escalation of commitment. Pre-commitment to BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. The best course of action if no deal is reached. Use if then plans. That means if this happens, then I do this. If this happens, then I do this. For example, if they lowball, I walk. And debrief post negotiation. So after you negotiate, you have to debrief and get an understanding of what happened. PSS, post settlement settlement, a process to revisit and improve a deal after initial agreement without re engaging. Propose improvements after agreement, add ons without reopening core terms. So if you come to a deal on an agreement and certain needs, instead of renegotiating those needs, those are set, and then you might want to add on additional items. Chapter 7, Strategies of Influence. Influence leverages psychology to make offers irresistible, counter common tactics to avoid manipulation. Loss aversion, which is framed as avoiding loss. Door in the face, extreme ask, then moderate. Foot in the door, small yes, builds to a big yes. Reciprocity, gifts prompt returns. Those are some tactics. Loss aversion, door in the face, foot in the door, reciprocity. Justify demands, provide reasons, even weak, for compliance. Cite others' actions. Social proof. She did it, so I'm doing it. Bundle news. Lump bad one hits. Split good, multiple wins. Chapter 8, unseen factors like absent stakeholders or info gaps sabotage deals. Proactive scanning reveals opportunities. Blind spots, different partner assessments, unintended precedent setting, missing multi-party dynamics. So these are all blind spots. Dress, map all influencers, stimulate scenarios, and use devil's advocate. So think what things can go wrong, right? Essentially. Plan for that. Look at all the options and make contingency plans. Chapter 9. Deception is common. Prevent via norms, detect through inconsistencies, and respond without accusation. Signal verification, use contingencies. This will help discourage deception. So what that means, like, hey, we'll audit claims to let them know so they don't try to deceive you. And if they do deceive you, use contingencies. You know, that's by planning. You got to plan for contingencies. Some ways to detect, ask collaborated questions. How did you arrive at that? Tell me more. Check baselines. Now, if you catch them, reframe as misunderstanding. Renegotiate ethically. Avoid lying. Long-term costs is your reputation, which outweighs short-term gain. There's ways of saying things without lying. It's about language and how much information you provide. Chapter 10, ethics builds trust but invite exploitation. Balance by setting boundaries without being naive. Some dilemmas, pressure to mislead, Puffery versus fraud. Puffery is making something sound a little bit better. Fraud is saying one thing when it's another. Fairness versus self interest. Ways to resolve. Claim moral authority. Example, we value transparency. Use bright line rules. Example, no lies. And prepare responses. Preparation is key. Puffery is like best product ever. For example, Chapter 11. Weak BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement, isn't fatal. Reframe by power by highlighting unique value or building alliances. This is key. Don't reveal weaknesses. Avoid desperation signals. I need this now. You want to still hold your position as a strong position to negotiate. But you show weakness, they smell blood. Waste of leverage. Ask for advice. This builds empathy. Form coalitions, disrupt imbalances. Ways to reframe. Focus on mutual gains and their vulnerabilities. Chapter 12. Ugly dynamic stems from emotions. De-escalate by ignoring provocations and refocusing on interests. Take emotion out of it. Examples of irrationality: treat as misperception. Provide data calmly. Keyword calmly. Some threats: ignore or preempt. Assess credibility. Some information about anger and ego. Validate feelings. Sometimes takes breaks. Sometimes you discuss. Instead of keep going, you got to take a break to refocus, re-energize. If you notice that they're getting irritated or frustrated, acknowledge it and take a break. When you have distrust, this build via small commitments or third parties. This will help counter the distrust. Chapter 13. When not to negotiate. Negotiation isn't always wise. Skip if costs, examples time and emotion, exceed benefits, or no ZOPA, zone of possible agreement. It's not always you have to negotiate and come to an understanding. Sometimes you don't negotiate. Some red flags. Known weak BATNA. Cultural inappropriateness, power abuse, or zero sum with no value creation. Some alternatives: litigate, compete, or accept status quo. Chapter 14. Geniuses emerge from deliberate practice. Apply the tools in this book incrementally across scenarios. Build habits. Parabatna. Always debrief on deals. This helps you learn and role play biases. Scale. From daily to highly stakes. You take it step by step and grow. Continuous improvement. Track outcomes and seek feedback. You have to learn from your mistakes and your strengths and your wins. Thanks again for joining us for another big book review. Hope you've enjoyed this book review on Negotiation Genius. Have a great day, everyone.